Poor lighting. Relying on just an overhead light just isn't enough anymore. What we really try to advise is layering the light from floor to ceiling. So if you go from table lamp to floor lamp to wall light to track lights and then have a pendant light, that room has a certain ambience that you can create whenever you're in there. Let's say you just want the room to feel cozy. You just put the lamp on. Let's say you want to have a reading light. You put the taller lamp on, the floor lamp. Having all these different locations where you have the lights means that that room can be any mood that you want to feel when you're in it. Look at for this project we did, for example, where we made sure that there was plenty of light. The client really had 4 windows in this room already, but they loved the idea of having as much light as possible. We started off, instead of doing spotlights, by putting a track light in, which went all the way through the room. We then wanted to draw our eye down by putting wall lights on behind the sofa. That way, whenever they're reading, they have a beautiful space to be in. Or if they're just having their friends or family over, it's a great way to have a conversation without having every single light on. One other place that we put the lighting was in the TV cabinet. If you notice in the shelving, it highlighted each piece of book or accessory or even home decoration that they had. So that really uplifted the space when you're watching TV or just have the TV off. Another one is where we actually have done lighting in our office, and we have tried to do lighting in every single spot. And what is great about that is we put the lights on and off as we please as to what mood we're in. So let's say we are looking at our samples for our clients. We have a direct light just above us that allows us to be able to see them as clear as possible. So this is great for office job where you need that light as much as possible on your screen. Another way we brought in lighting was on the TV units that you see in the back. We put it all on top of the unit so it really uplifts rather than it just being staying standalone. We tried to add lighting in the table lamp on the unit just to, again, bring your attention to different levels whenever you're in the space. And architecturally, we had even brought down the ceiling to create lighting between not only the curtain area, but also behind our desk wall. So if you can see where we have our We Star Homes logo, we had light coming down from there. What this does is it warms up the space. It makes it feel inviting. It actually makes it feel cozy and impressive, but it doesn't command any attention where you get tired of looking at it. And whenever you don't want so many lights, you just turn them off. Number 2, pushing furniture against walls. The idea behind this is so that the room feels bigger, but in reality, it takes away the flow of a space. So sometimes bringing your sofa away from the wall and then maybe putting a floating console or lamps on top can create that movement so that you can walk around it. You could even put a desk behind, let's say, a sofa, and therefore someone can work in that space while watching the TV. What it means is if it's a long room, you have been able to make use of most of the room rather than just shifting pieces against walls. Let me show you some of the ones that we've done in our projects. This project we did was our client's top floor guest room. They wanted it to be a guest room cum cinema room because they only had one TV room downstairs. The idea behind this was they only have guests every once in a while, but they always want to watch a movie and have friends over in different locations. Sometimes the girls want to be in one room, the guys want to be in the other. So what we did was we created this gorgeous L-shaped sofa, and because the room was so awkwardly shaped, we just placed it right in the center. What was great about this was it brought it closer to the TV so that you really felt immersed when you were watching TV. But then when it was a guest room, there was plenty of storage hidden away that didn't feel like a bedroom storage room, and a mirror for you to be able to get dressed in. And the sofa was a sofa bed, which pulled out. What was great was not only was there an L attached to this sofa bed, when that sofa bed came out, they could have at least 3 people comfortably sleep in there. By putting this in the center of the room, it meant that there was a lot more flow. You were able to walk around so that when you went to come see a movie, you weren't so far away from the TV. Also, when you went to sleep, there was a plenty amount of space to be able to get ready when the bed was already open. Making sure that the room layout is well planned out before you buy any of the furniture is very important to avoid any of these kind of mistakes. Number 3, choosing the wrong size rug. Putting a rug which is too small in a space actually gets eaten up by the floor. So we always try and say, space it out so that it fits around your furniture. So if you have a look at our project we did here, we actually had a very narrow space and the client wanted to be able to walk in from their living room with their shoes on without stepping on the carpet. So what we had done was we created this beautiful oval rug, and it meant that you still got the length, but then you had a much narrower depth. By putting it under the sofa slightly, it meant that you actually had this illusion that it's bigger than it is. It also made the room feel a lot more cozier. When you go too small, it actually feels inconspicuous. It's almost like it shouldn't even be there in the first place. Always try and make sure that the larger you go, the better, but make sure it doesn't cover the floor completely. It just makes it feel more cozier. Number 4, ignoring scale and proportion. A lot of people mix pieces which are too big or too small for the room. We always try and advise making sure everything fits to scale. And by doing this, you can do simple things by putting masking tape on the floor. Let's say you have a dining table, but you don't know whether you should go for a round or a rectangular, or you want an 8-seater or a 6-seater or even a 4-seater. When you're in that space, we always try and measure out what is there, what is existing, and then we scale it out to see if, when the chairs are open, is there enough space. If you see this project we did, our client's dining space, it was an open plan kitchen and it was absolutely beautiful, but the place where they'd left the dining table was so tight. Our aim was to find the perfect size table which allowed for 6 seats and also a TV space without making the place feel too crowded. So what we did was we found chairs which had a very narrow depth because depth was very small, and it meant that when they pull out their chairs, they have the space to walk around. Then on top of that, we made sure that the table base was only in the center, meaning there was no legs on the sides of the dining table. It was all in the middle, meaning the chairs could be tucked into the max. And it just meant that you didn't hit your leg on the sides of a dining table because the space was tight. What we did with the TV area was, because we couldn't have any storage, but we still wanted that wow factor because it was such a huge wall, we put 2 panels on top and then we added wall lights. So our eyes were drawn side by side of the TV. When the TV wasn't on, it still looked like a beautiful masterpiece. It was very simple but elegant. And by doing the scale of the wall, it meant that the TV felt much more luxurious than it actually was. We could have just put a TV there, but there wouldn't have been any impact. Even though the TV size is great, by putting a bit of texture behind the wall by those panels and then adding those wall lights, it actually made that wall feel like a feature wall, meaning that when that person is sitting there and not even having the TV on, it's something beautiful to see. So we always advise making sure your scale, your size are all correct, that fit perfectly in that space. Otherwise, it just gets eaten up by the wall. Ways to also add a little bit more value is, we would say, add that wallpaper in. It really lifts up a space. And if you make sure that you get something very subtle, it can go all throughout the room. Number 5, too many matching pieces. Try and avoid getting furniture sets. This can start looking dated and a bit boring. What we would try to suggest is mixed textures, finishes, so that they then add a little bit more depth and warmth to the room. Have a look at this project that we did. We had this large living space that required 3 different seating areas, all in one room. What we tried to do is continue the same flow by using the same type of color scheme, but using different textures. So we repeated the sofa 3 times in 3 different spaces. But what that did was it created a continuation. But what we had tried to create in each area was a seating area with 2 chairs, 2 sofas facing opposite each other, 2 other sofas which were different colors. Because they were all in one space, what it did was it created a flow, but it didn't feel like it was so obvious. There was a bit of thought process behind it. There was this area is for casual seating, this place is for us to watch TV, and this place is for us to enjoy the garden. By creating different layers in that same room, but still creating a flow, meant that that room will feel timeless forever. If we had done the same sofas in every single section, it would have become really tired very quickly. So what we would try and say is avoid getting those furniture sets. Try and look for armchair that has a similar color tone but a different texture. And that way, that room is much more exciting when you go in. Number 6, neglecting vertical space. What we always try and advise is add bookshelves, add artwork, add panels on your walls so that the height is drawn up and your eyes are drawn up into the room. When you have just kept a sofa and there's nothing behind it, like artificial plant or real plant or shelving, it becomes a little mundane. You need that little height, even a floor lamp, to create that wow factor when you look and your eye is not just focused on the sofa. It needs to all blend in together where your eye is enjoying the view from ground to the ceiling. If you have a look at this project, we had this garage that was converted into a TV room. We really wanted to maximize storage, give a great display area, but then also be a great place to watch TV without it feeling too overpowering or too overcluttered. It was a weird angle and weird heights altogether, but we never stopped avoiding using any of the wall space. On one side, we had a closed, beautiful circular unit, which actually looked like an art piece with an open display area where you could add your accessories and your personal touch. But below, what was great was we had all the media unit inside, hiding all those extra wires that nobody wants to actually see. Then on the right-hand side, the client really wanted a place to put all their books and their accessories and photo frames and memorabilia that they've collected over the years. So we created height on this side, which meant that they had plenty of storage space. And even at the bottom, we had another storage space for them to hide anything that they didn't want to show. What this does is it keeps your eye constantly engaged without it being overpowering. No one's saying to clutter it to the max, but it always makes such a difference when it is thought from floor to ceiling rather than just either slap in the middle with one TV or just a sofa. Number 7, cluttered or over-decorated areas on surfaces. One mistake we try to avoid is filling every surface with accessories, books, or pieces, because what that does is it just makes it feel cluttered. There's a difference between organized mess and just mess. So what we always try to do is use accessories that fit to that space perfectly rather than just plopping it wherever it fits and then becoming a dust piece or something that looks like clutter. If you look at this project we did, this was a kids' playroom. The client wanted plenty of place to put all their toys and books in an organized way, and then all the other clutter would go hidden away. By using similar colored books or accessories and toys, it just made that open space look so beautiful and inviting for the children to be able to pick up what they needed, but then all the other mess was hidden away. If you can try and put the books which are too big or wrong colors hidden away, but then the other ones which are all accessorized correctly to that space, it makes such a difference. We also even love when on the dining table or the coffee table here, this was the children's play area, we had accessories on top of the table which are out of their way so that when they were drawing or coloring, it still looked lovely, but it wasn't affecting them when they were playing. Less is more, so by taking away some of the pieces that don't really add value when you're looking at it when you walk into a room is so important. Feel free to hide those things or hug them and throw them, as I say. Number 8, forgetting functionality. A mistake people can make is choosing style over functionality. So as interior designers, we do know how to bring the two together, but it can easily go wrong if you're just going according to trends that are in. One of the projects we recently did was where a client wanted everything taupe. This is my dream, by the way. But we understand people like color too. In this room, she knew there would be no food, there would be no mess, it would be a pristine room. Not that that even matters because we use the types of fabrics which are hard wearing. But what can happen is if it becomes too muted in color, it could be a place that could become messier very easily. So if you have a look at this project we did, we kept everything neutral, but we added texture. So the sofa that was going to be heavily used was a leather fabric. Not only was it comfortable, cozy, it looked incredible. Our client wanted to make sure comfort was key. So make sure when you're ordering a sofa and that you don't get to see it in person beforehand, check all the measurements, see if that size works for you, the way you sit, the way you feel. It comes down to using just a measuring tape and seeing if that depth is enough and does that depth fit into your space. We wanted to make it also a conversational area. So not only was this a cinema room which had a great media wall, it was a great place for people to come in and chat. We made sure that the armchairs were large enough and cozy enough for somebody to be able to sit, have a conversation with someone on the sofa, put their feet up, read a book. So many different things that could be done in this room. The whole point is to make sure it's practical to your needs. And that is something that we always try and enforce in any room because we want you to enjoy every room like you don't need anything else in there. Other things that we would suggest is, make sure that there's enough side tables for you to put your coffee down. The coffee table allows you to be able to put things down so that you don't feel like you're just holding things or leaving it on the floor. Hidden storage always makes a big help. Let's say you have blankets or books that you don't want to show or candles. All in our media wall was full of storage as well as display, but that allowed you to be able to make it practical as well as beautiful to look at. Number 9, poor curtain placement. The best thing to do is mount curtains high and wide so that they really display the window rather than covering it all up. If you see in a lot of our projects, what we like to do is use track. This means that they can either be hidden behind a pelmet, they can be inconspicuous, so that the curtain is more of the feature. We always try to make sure that it is just under the coving, depending on where the window finishes and ends, especially for curtains, and we make it straight to the floor. We like to kiss it against the floor. That way there's that little bit of gap so the bottom of the curtain doesn't get dirty. People have different views. They may like it dragging on the floor. What we would 100% never let people do is have them short, where it's just above the radiator or to the sill. This is a big no-no. Not only does it cut the room in half, it just doesn't look nice. So if you ever do have this issue where you don't know where or what to do with your window dressing, always think, I want to maximize how much I see through that window, so I want to make sure that the curtains do not cover as much, and I want it as high as possible and as wide as possible. Number 10, lack of personal touch. Nobody wants a place that looks like a showroom. I mean, it's great when you walk in, and personally I love it just because that is what we do for all of our projects when we do our photo shoot. But the reality is we always want that memorable piece or that photo that we adore looking at every time we walk into a space. Make sure you add those photos of you from your holidays or your wedding or a great moment that you've had in your life. Frame it in a way that it looks attractive as an art piece as well as a great memory that you get to look at. Accessories that you've picked up along the way from your travels, put them in a way that it works artistically rather than just plopping it into a space. For instance, if you have coffee book or books that you have collected on your travels or books that you just adore and love to read and look at, place them in a way that the accessory that you've collected works well with it. For instance, one of our clients had so many books and we made a library room for him. He had the most incredible finished books with so much color, and he had accessories that matched them. We didn't try to put too many in, but what we did was we highlighted them by making them a feature in the room rather than too much clutter in the space. By adding that personal touch, you really get that feel of this is my home, this is my room, this is how I show the world how I live. So adding those little pieces makes all the difference. If you like this video, please check out our other video on trends that you should avoid if you hate cleaning.